Good morning. So, for a first outing of me doing this on my personal channel rather than on the Petroglyph channel, I just these were the thoughts rattling around my brain, and there was there's just some things that dog my days and my thoughts a lot. One of those is the concept of greatness, or the desire to do something great, to be memorable, to leave a legacy. I think in the hierarchy of some needs within educational theory, it was the idea of generativity versus stagnation, something along those lines. I haven't researched it prior, so don't dog me in the comments about it. But then there's another thing, the desire to be creative, to do something creative that you feel is truly original and unique. And I think those pieces of us come from that part where in Genesis, in the creation account, it says that he made us in his image, both male and female. And so there's a part of us that strives to be great, but it takes understanding that real greatness doesn't come from the thing we see portrayed most of the time in our world. Clawing, climbing, biting your way to the top of the heap, to being the 1% or whatever it is. And there's a perception that that's what it means to be great. And I know it's dogged a lot of my journey, because when I think about that, then there come the I guess brother and sister demons of self-comparison, and that self-comparison combined with the idea of defining success based on other people's terms. You basically give them real estate in your head and your heart, and you're kind of doomed from the start. Scripture portrays the true way to greatness as being through servant leadership, and it's such a revolutionary concept that even a lot of business and productivity scholars out there have tried to incorporate that idea of servant leadership into how a secular company or corporation would run. But it's artificial because you are missing the key component, where the core example, the core source for servant leadership is in the example of Jesus Christ. And so the other thing kind of related to that is there's a desire to be creative. And it's no secret, in my other channel, I've struggled with copyright claims, trying to do reaction videos, trying to do these sorts of things. But I've also seen a lot in news of late and recently about plagiarism and copying and such. And ultimately, I got to thinking this morning, I was like, does man really create anything original? Does humanity ever really create anything original? In the South, we have a saying about cooking. You know, if they're really making a determination on whether your cooking is good, or whether you took the road less traveled and the tougher route to a good meal or service of food, did you make it from scratch? You know, in Louisiana, when it comes to things like gumbo or things of that nature, the question is always posed between family members: did you make your own roux, or did you use roux from a jar? And so there's this idea of making things from scratch, but creatively, we really don't ever completely make anything from scratch. If you take it far enough back, ultimately we are just refashioners, repurposers of material that was already created. God is the only one that has ever created out of nothing, who has come up with a thought when there was no other thoughts, who has come up with stuff when there was no other stuff. And so I know there are probably people out there listening that don't necessarily believe those sorts of things, but as far as classic Christian theology goes, when we get down to it, God really is the only one that has ever truly done anything creative. And I think there's a part in the image of God within us that desires or strives to do something creative. And I think what bugs me about the current climate is the fact that you're trying to do something creative. You're not trying to claim anyone else's work as your own, but because of and this is not related to race, but just because of the privilege of where they are station-wise in life, and yes, it may be a majority of this people or another people, but the reality is it's really more of a privilege of position, station, sometimes socioeconomic position, that makes a difference into whether you get called out on your plagiarism. Now, sometimes it works in the opposite, where if you have been working your way to the top and all of a sudden you get there, now some of the stuff that went under the radar, you're working to hide it, because now it's going to be brought out into the light and people will discover where you borrowed and begged and stealed along the way. So just two areas that it's really hard, because of the way success gets defined in those areas, to be great and to do something truly creative. Another place, but I don't have time for it this morning, is just the idea of, if you are trying to do things, and along these same ideas of being creative and greatness, our minds wander from time to time. And I don't know if anyone else has ever worked in a situation, I'm not saying this of my current situation, but if you've ever been employed in a situation and you had to sign all those little papers at the beginning that says, okay, ultimately, if you read it really carefully, a lot of times those agreements are saying, basically from whatever time of opening to whatever time of closing, we own you. Your mind, your thoughts, your everything. Once again, not at my current position, but in one of the first jobs I ever got out of college, we had a lot of in-between times where we were either waiting for a phone call or waiting for the time to kick off a process. And to pass the time, I would try to bring something to read. Started out with just something entertaining that I would want to read, and then they were like, no, you can't do that. Okay. I was also serving bivocationally as a youth minister, so I'd bring my Bible with me and read it a little bit, and they're, no. If you're going to read while you're at this job, you will read trade publications. Okay? And so there's a place in Scripture where it talks about that within the Christian church, we're not to lord it over one another as the Gentiles do. In other words, their authority and their position is about of, I'm better, I'm higher, I'm over you, I can tell you what to do. Things like that also tell me that in some sense there's an evil of slavery or wanting to hold down another person is part of the core of the sinful nature of human beings. So while I respect people's attempts to do away with slavery in the world, I really don't think we're ever going to truly do away with it until we deal and do away with the sin problem in man. And if you read the whole of Scripture, you know that there's only one way that that ultimately happens. So, anyway, my point being that, you know, even the thoughts that you would write into an agreement for an employee that while you're at this job between this hour and this hour, even the thoughts that run through your head are ours. How dare they? How dare they try to think that they own another person? And like I said, not my current job at all. I love the people I work with. I love the situation that I'm in as far as work. But I'm aware that the concept is out there. And it just appalls me. So, anyway, this was the kickoff for doing these on my personal channel. The other type of content, pop culture stuff, other random source stuff, will be on the Petroglyph channel, but this will be stuff that's more personal in nature, more of my spiritual stuff, if I have sermons or different things of that nature. So, till next time.